People probably think you mad annoying, bro. So I'm gonna give you 3 ways to be more nonchalant. Number 1, and definitely the most important, you need to not talk as much. Like the second you start talking less, people value what you say a lot more. Number 2 is you gotta chill out. In a stressful situation, everyone respects the guy who remains calm. So you gotta be that guy that people look at and they're like, damn, okay, he's calm. An example of this is, let's say your card declines at a restaurant. Instead of freaking out over it, just be like, word, and then try a new fucking card, bro.
Hi, how are you? Okay, I'll take hazelnut, cold foam, cold brew, please. What size? Pardon? What size? Oh, 24 ounce, please. Okay, thanks. I'll just wait down here for it.
In the movie Mean Girls, we're introduced to the character Regina George. She was the popular it girl that wasn't loud or outwardly desperate for attention, the key word being outwardly. Her power came from how effortlessly cool and detached she appeared to everybody. She didn't really have to try too hard, and her confidence and subtle manipulation of others gave her control over her social world. And there was also that scene where Regina George gets confronted about the burn book, and her response wasn't even to cry or apologize or really show any emotion for that matter. She just kind of shrugged and said so, with that signature indifference that she was so popular for. That moment is the perfect example of how her power came from detachment. That cold, I don't care attitude that she was so famous for today would be called having aura. At least that's what the kids are saying. But back then, this was more so framed as entertainment, something that was exaggerated, something that we laughed at. No one wanted to necessarily be Regina George because she was framed as the villain. But today, that same detached attitude is becoming sought after.
Best piece of advice is to stop caring about things that you've previously cared about.
And don't get me wrong, the nonchalant attitude has always existed. It's always been a trope, but I feel like it's becoming more popularized and widespread. I guess you could say it feels a bit more strategic than it was before. We're watching a generation that appears to be afraid of being seen in an emotional state, so much so that they're turning this emotional numbness and detachment into a lifestyle brand. Now, of course, this isn't just about Gen Z, because right now the biggest aura icon is a grown man. I'm sure you've heard of him, Duke Dennis. But the shift does seem to resonate the strongest with the younger generations. They're kind of growing up in this world where these rules feel like survival skills, not just social tricks. When every awkward moment can be recorded and then screenshotted and circulated across social media, these interactions start to feel like a performance. So today I want to talk about how growing up online and in a completely different social environment has completely changed how a generation interacts with each other. And now we're starting to see detachment, irony, and aura replace open emotions. What's up, YouTube? I'm tinysey. If you're new here, welcome. And if you've been here before, welcome back. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And welcome to my digital garden. Since we're going to be talking about self-image and aura, I figured this is the perfect time to mention today's sponsor, FOREO. They've been a really cool part of my skincare routine lately, and this is the FAQ 202 by FOREO. It's basically a high-tech LED face mask that's super easy to use. It's very lightweight, wireless, and it's made from a really soft, flexible silicone that fits perfectly to your face for even light coverage. It has 8 different LED light settings, including near infrared, and each one targets a specific skin concern. I've personally been using the green setting a lot because I just got back from vacation and my skin was definitely feeling stressed out from all of the sun exposure. The green lights really helped calm and soothe my skin, so now it's feeling a lot less irritated and a lot more refreshed. I also really like how easy it is to multitask with the mask on. It's wireless and it's lightweight, so honestly it makes it super easy to wear while I go about my day. And right now is the perfect time to try it because FOREO is celebrating their birthday with some amazing deals on their website. I've also got an exclusive code just for you guys, and you can click the link in my description box and use my code tinysey35 for an extra 35% off almost all FOREO products. That also includes the FAQ 202, and that code also stacks with existing discounts, so you can save up to 50% off total. And if you've been thinking about upgrading your skincare routine, do not sleep on this deal. And a huge thanks to FOREO for sponsoring this video. And let's get back to aura farming. So how did we get here? How did we end up in a world where something like aura farming is a thing? Part of that answer lies in the way that the internet and especially social media has reshaped our social environment. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter have made it a lot easier to give other people a glimpse into our lives, but they also have turned everything into potential content. So that means every moment can be documented, uploaded, scrutinized, and if it hits the wrong corner of the internet, become the butt of the joke for weeks on end. I'm sure you guys have seen the whole Justin Bieber "I'm standing on business" meme that's been going around.
You're not getting it. It's not clocking to you. It's not clocking to you that I'm standing on business, is it?
People made it funny, but it also sucks because he was seriously in distress, and now it's just become a funny soundbite. But we'll get into how that's also part of the problem a little bit later in the video. As I was saying, social media has completely changed the way young people are even socialized. Ideas, behaviors, and even emotions spread a lot faster than they ever did before. It's shaping how people interact, present themselves, and think about their place in the world. In some ways, this is a good thing, but it's also coming with a lot of unforeseen costs. A study that was done by Trinity College London found that 80% of Gen Z students acquire a significant portion of their language skills from watching social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram. But they're not just learning how to speak, they're also learning the unspoken rules of what's socially acceptable, what's cool, and what will make you the butt of the joke in the comment section. For those of us that weren't raised on social media and the internet, it's probably hard to grasp how much this is actually affecting how the younger generation is being socialized. But I think about it like the old teen magazines that we would read when we were standing in line at the grocery store. The ones that had quizzes about if you're a good friend or who wore it best. It's kind of like that, but on steroids, because instead of just reading it once and moving on, you're constantly getting fed these rules through the endless videos, memes, and viral trends. And you're being taught exactly how to act, what to say, and what not to do to avoid being called cringe. And I think cringe culture is a huge part of this. Of course, being awkward has existed since the dawn of time. People have always embarrassed themselves because of whatever socially awkward behaviors that they've done. But something shifted with the rise of cringe culture in 2014. It made those fleeting, embarrassing moments more of a public spectacle because of all the cringe compilations. And in the earlier era of the internet, cringe was a lot more niche. It was confined to the forums, meme pages, or blogs where those specific subcultures could share their so-called cringy weirdness with the other people who actually got it. But as those platforms became a lot more public and algorithm driven, the audience expanded. So suddenly everyone was watching, even those that were outside the context of a given video or post. And people like to point to anime subcultures as weird and cringy a lot of the times, but honestly, it was for the people that got it. Because of the visibility that the internet gives, it's made awkwardness so much bigger and scarier than it ever was for previous generations. And it's not only about the fear of being recorded and then embarrassed or becoming part of those cringe compilations. It's also just the knowledge of what is awkward, what is cringy, what behaviors are cool, what behaviors aren't cool. Previous generations didn't really know all of these things. So it's so much pressure on the younger generation. The constant social surveillance has created what researchers are calling a culture of hypervigilance. Essentially, it's making the younger generation hyper aware of their every move. They're constantly monitoring themselves to avoid saying or doing anything that could get them ridiculed publicly or privately.
I saw someone talking on here about how the reason younger generations are afraid to look cringe and they judge millennials and stuff for being cringe is because they're going back to more conservative ways. Like, it's so normal to be more conservative now, and that's like the trend of where the world is going at this point. And that being afraid of standing out and being cringy is relating you to being more conservative because you don't want to stand out, you don't want to be loud, you don't want to be embarrassing, or the way that I look at it, you don't want to like be your own person, you don't want to have a voice, you don't want to stand out and make a difference. And it just makes so much sense to me. Like I've never thought of it that way.
See the same hyper-awareness fueling the rise of what's now called icks. People online will call out extremely minor everyday behaviors like the way someone eats or how they walk or how they say goodbye as an instant turnoff. And it's become a viral trend to categorize these so-called icks, turning completely normal human quirks into deal breakers. And that specific sort of nitpicking has made people even more cautious and afraid that something as simple as tying their shoe the wrong way might get them labeled as embarrassing or losing aura. It sounds unserious, but you really can't make this stuff up. It's created this loop where everyone is hyper aware of themselves, but also hypercritical of others. Social media didn't just make young people more careful about how they behave, it also gave them tools to constantly judge everyone else, both online and in person. So now you've got a generation that's both terrified of being judged and eager to dish out that same judgment. And this cycle of watching, policing, and performing has shaped an entire social dynamic where being perceived the wrong way feels like the worst thing that can happen. With the rise and spread of cringe culture, it only makes sense that now people are starting to become so obsessed with the nonchalant aesthetics and having aura. On social media, having aura means that you're possessing a certain type of mystique or you're effortlessly cool. It's about being unbothered, chill, and slightly aloof. And closely tied to that is this idea of being nonchalant, which has become its own little culture online. Having aura leans more towards mystery and effortless confidence, and being nonchalant is more about not showing any emotional reaction at all.
Yeah, I just bought my mom a crib type.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I bought my dad a car.
What? What car did you buy him?
Lamborghini, I think.
What do you do for a living? That's crazy.
Vibes.
You'll see a lot of TikTok jokes where people exaggerate extreme indifference for laughs, but even those jokes are pointing to something that's real. It's part of this bigger social trend where detachment and emotional numbness are becoming more normalized behaviors to the point that it's becoming seen as cool or even aspirational. Influencers like Duke Dennis have popularized this concept, and he's even praised, or some may say glazed, for the amount of aura that he supposedly has. The term's really evolved into a form of social currency. People even aura farm or perform these calculated acts that make them appear more mysterious and cool. But there also seems to be this huge catch in all of it, because if you try too hard to have an aura, you can lose it. And if you're caught chasing aura, then you become cringe. I've seen a lot of TikTok videos about ways to lose aura, and it's really just common mistakes like falling asleep in class and then twitching, or walking with an open backpack, or tripping on the stairs. They're all very normal human experiences, but they're now framed as reasons you can lose aura. And it's another sign of how younger people are extremely fixated on their image and anxious about everyday mishaps. And although this seems like a superficial trend, it's also reflecting a deeper social anxiety that's becoming a lot more common. The pressure that's growing to maintain a flawless and detached persona really discourages people to be vulnerable and ramps up social anxiety. A large-scale study across several countries found that over 1/3 of young adults now meet criteria for social anxiety disorder. And mental health experts point to social media, particularly its constant surveillance and self-presentation, as a major factor in this whole issue. Another analysis focusing on college students found a strong link between problematic social media use and anxiety. It was showing that it's not just about time spent online, but also how people use these platforms. What are you doing on these platforms? Are you comparing yourself to others? Also, what platforms are you using? They found that things like Netflix and YouTube are a lot less harmful than things like TikTok or Instagram, as you would assume. This trend is also showing up in other ways, like the tendency we've been seeing for people to joke about serious topics, anti-intellectualism, and the way people downplay others who try to have meaningful conversations is becoming a a lot bigger issue than it ever was before. You can even see it in the way people reacted to the recent Justin Bieber moment, like I mentioned earlier. They were making a joke of someone clearly in distress instead of showing empathy. And this just adds to the growing normalization of not taking anything seriously. Lately, even serious emotions or situations are brushed off, laughed at, or turned into a meme. And there's this growing aversion to serious emotions altogether. Some people even refer to this as irony poisoning, where people are so used to ironic, sarcastic humor that they can't even engage with anything sincerely anymore. It's like we've been trained to instantly turn serious feelings into a joke just to avoid looking uncool or as if you actually care about something. But it's not just personal, it's structural as well. Researchers also point to what's called surveillance culture. Social media encourages people to constantly monitor themselves and others, almost like we're both the performer and the security camera at the same time. And that pressure makes it feel safer to act detached, laugh everything off, and avoid showing any real vulnerability. Everyone wants to be mysterious and cool, but no one wants to be caught actually caring. I can't help but think of this from a personal angle as well, because back in high school, we read the Scarlet Letter and we had a class project where we had to create a letter that described ourselves and then wear it around school. I got assigned the letter N, and my teacher had once called me nonchalant because of the way that I walked into class, so I decided to go with that. And at the time, I didn't really think much about it, but my mom had told me that being called nonchalant wasn't exactly a compliment. But to me, when I looked up the definition, it seemed just like a neutral thing. It wasn't good or bad, but it honestly just made sense to me because I always had been shy and introverted, and being seen as nonchalant was more about my difficulty expressing myself in unfamiliar settings than it was any sense of confidence. So seeing how nonchalant is now something people actively want to be feels a bit strange, because we're starting to romanticize something that often comes from social discomfort or anxiety even. And looking into this, I've noticed that a lot of people who come off as nonchalant aren't necessarily trying to look cool. They're just trying to survive these social situations. But online, this natural introversion is being spun as an aesthetic, and that disconnect feels very weird. Another aspect of this whole phenomenon that's starting to appear is the Gen Z stare. If you're chronically online on social media, you've likely seen or heard about it. It's this deadpan, blank look that's often associated with Gen Z, particularly when they're dealing with awkward situations or annoying customers at work. At least that's how they're describing it.
This is the Gen Z stare that I got when I went to Chipotle. I walk in, Gen Z. Can I get a bowl with beef, rice, beans, and guac? Our system is down, so we can't accept cards, only cash. I don't carry cash. Walks away.
Hi, what can I get for you?
I want a latte with whole milk, but I'm lactose intolerant.
We do offer milk alternatives like oat and almond milk.
Last time I checked, milk is something that comes from a cow, so I refuse to drink anything that doesn't come from a cow.
Okay, but milk from cows would have lactose in it though.
The stares become symbolic of the broader cultural attitude and way that people interact socially. Very blunt, minimal, and not performative. And there's a lot of different interpretations of what this look actually is and means online. Some people are describing it as young workers refusing to fake politeness in customer service roles. They see fake smiles and small talk as unnecessary labor, and others are viewing it as a lack of social skills and a refusal to engage in basic politeness. And of course, there's the other people that have no idea what this is at all. But regardless of perspective, I feel like the Gen Z stare taps into the larger phenomenon that we have been seeing unfold. The whole overall apathy in behavior. This is definitely a turn from how the older generation likes to interact. Historically, social interactions have always been shaped by the broader environment. According to research published in the Journal of Youth Studies, earlier generations like Boomers and Gen X developed their social skills in offline environments where mistakes were temporary. If you embarrassed yourself at school or work, it likely just stayed in that space. It wasn't preserved forever on video or photos. So this fundamental difference explains a lot of the cultural gap between Gen Z and older generations. They were growing up in a world where awkwardness was fleeting and the risk of being socially vulnerable were a lot lower. You could trip, say something embarrassing, or have an awkward conversation, and the worst outcome was a few nights of replaying the whole event in your head before you forgot about it. The rewards of social risk-taking, like making a friend or learning something new, outweighed the potential consequences. And on the other hand, Gen Z's come of age in what sociologists call ambient surveillance. There's a constant low-level awareness that every interaction could be recorded, shared, and mocked publicly. In this digital environment, awkwardness is often permanent and painfully public. I mean, we've seen people lose their jobs, lose their applications to college. There's so many consequences of putting yourself online. So what may look like rudeness or apathy to older generations, the blank stare, the avoidance of small talk, just reflects how younger generations have been socialized in an entirely different environment. Their social cues and communication styles were shaped by digital platforms where brevity, detachment, and emotional neutrality often reign supreme. And older generations might see it as rude or antisocial, but for a lot of young people, it's just the social language that they've grown up with. So I guess what looks like apathy can also be seen as a new kind of social fluency. Ultimately, I don't think it's just about politeness versus rudeness. It's about two generations that operate under completely different social conditions.
So the older generations on here talking about Gen Z got a Gen Z stare, you feel me? And I'ma say, hell yeah, we do, you feel me? We not y'all, bro. We don't come into these random minimum wage jobs trying to be employee of the year, bro. We here to collect our check and go home. I just woke up at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning to go clock in for $10 an hour. And you think I'm here to start making small talk? No, bro, I'm here for my check and to go home. Like, imagine I'm bagging groceries at the grocery store. Why would I want to have a small conversation with every customer that comes into my fucking lane?
So when older generations try to engage with friendly small talk and receive the Gen Z stare in return, they're not just experiencing interpersonal friction, they're witnessing the collision of two distinct social realities. Despite all of this obsession with nonchalance and detachment, what we're really seeing isn't just a passing trend. It's a reflection of how people, especially young people, are being socialized today. I don't think this is all doom and gloom, but it does raise questions about whether this constant emotional distancing is making it harder for people to build meaningful connections or feel comfortable being themselves. A 2024 Gallup and Walton Family Foundation report found that about 3/4 of Gen Z describe themselves as very or somewhat happy. But that percentage drops significantly as they reach adulthood. And this isn't just about happiness, it's about how a lot of emotions like excitement, enthusiasm, even sadness are being treated as liabilities by the younger generation. The social culture, if you will, is in a very weird place, and it feels like young people are approaching any strong emotion with a lot of caution. And this detachment also isn't happening in a vacuum. Gen Z is also growing up in an era of overwhelming systemic stress. There's a skyrocketing cost of living, political instability, and a constant flood of overwhelming information online. And when everything feels uncertain and exhausting, it makes sense that people become more emotionally detached as a coping mechanism. And also, this kind of emotional detachment isn't entirely new. It's just showing up in a different form. During the Cold War, for example, people were also encouraged to suppress strong emotions and maintain their composure as a way of coping with the political anxiety and societal pressure. So emotional restraint was seen as necessary for safety and respectability, especially when you were in public. It's also probably hard to feel genuinely happy when you've been socialized to see enthusiasm and vulnerability as cringeworthy. In a Philippian article, it said humans naturally strive for affection and affirmation in relationships. The glorification of nonchalance in social media platforms and within pop culture has encouraged people to refrain from speaking their true thoughts. However, reacting enthusiastically to your friends' comments and expressing love and care towards others can establish a trusting relationship. But building those kinds of relationships require vulnerability, something today's digital culture has taught us to avoid at all costs. This isn't just about awkwardness or shyness anymore. It's both a symptom and a contributor to the mental health crisis that young people are experiencing. When you're constantly monitoring your behavior for signs of potential cringe, and when you're always performing nonchalance instead of just feeling your emotions, when you're afraid of being enthusiastic about anything, that's not just social awkwardness anymore. That also can lead to anxiety. The pressure to maintain aura at all times, to never slip into anything that might be perceived as try-hard or cringe, creates a state of hypervigilance that is mentally exhausting. I definitely know that feeling of being hyper aware of your behavior, and it's personally not fun. Every interaction becomes more of a performance, and it becomes harder to experience genuine connection. And honestly, this all makes even more sense when you think about it alongside the broader loneliness epidemic. It's not hard to see how this widespread emotional distancing, combined with fewer opportunities for genuine connection, has contributed to the growing sense of isolation. When everyone's stuck in this cycle of detachment, it becomes even harder to break out of it and build real community. Remember when people just enjoyed things? That world doesn't have to be gone forever, and it probably isn't, to be honest. Millennials are just one generation older than Gen Z, and I see them being teased by them for being cringe. Their whole era of being openly enthusiastic, having corny humor, and having unique self-expression isn't that far behind us. I think millennials were just new to the internet, and they weren't navigating as strict social rules about what was considered cool and not cool. I guess you could say they were just a bit more unfiltered and raw because they didn't know better. Now we're seeing the second generation that's raised on the internet, and it's a reminder of just how quickly social expectations can shift. It's easy to forget that this kind of self-expression was completely normal not that long ago. We honestly just need to choose to bring it back. Hopefully people start feeling more comfortable, getting excited about small things, being passionate about something that they love, or simply just trying hard about something that they care about. No more anti-intellectualism, no more nonchalance. I think that should be dead in 2025. It's probably still going to feel cringy, but we just need to replace that word in our head with human or real, because that's honestly just what it is. And in this hyper-curated, hyper-cynical digital age, being truly yourself, even if that is cringe, would be a step in the right direction. So that is all that I have for you, and I'm curious to know what's something that you guys view as cringy behavior. If you made it this far in the video, please comment the ice emoji, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next YouTube video.